The last song in the snow kept falling. Soft white flakes covered the dead forest. The trees stood like ghosts. Everything was cold. Everything was silent. Kailri held her child close. Her thin arms were shaking. Her skin was blue from the cold. Her clothes were torn. Her legs were weak. But she would not let go of her son. He was small. Too small. His skin was pale. His eyes were half closed. His breath came slow, and slow again. Kailri rocked him gently, though her muscles hurt. She whispered a lullaby in her own alien tongue. Her voice was rough and dry, but she kept singing. Sleep now, little star. No fear, no pain, just dreams afar. Mother will guard you in the snow, even when the winds blow. A tear froze on her cheek. They had walked for days. After the last village pushed them away, after the final door slammed shut. Too many mouths, they had said, no room for the sick. So she had walked, into the forest, into the snow, with only her child and a weak hope that someone, anyone, might help. But no one came. And now, her child was slipping away. Kailri curled tighter around him, using her body to shield him from the cold. She closed her eyes. Maybe she would die before he did. That would be better. At least she would not hear his final breath. The wind howled, the snow thickened. Night came fast. She sang the lullaby again, slower this time. Her lips were numb, her voice was thin, but the song was all she had left. Then, a sound crunch. Kailri's eyes opened. Crunch, crunch. Footsteps. She raised her head slowly. Her vision was blurred. Shapes moved through the snow. A figure, tall, 2 legs, covered in thick black cloth, a mask over the face, strange glowing eyes. Human. Kailri froze. Her heart pounded. She had never seen a human up close. Stories said they were cruel. Some said they were kind. But most said, stay away. The human stopped a few feet away. He looked down at her, then at the child in her arms. He dropped to one knee. Kailri growled weakly, trying to protect her son. Her claws shook. She was too tired to fight. The human slowly raised his hands to show no harm. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out something small. A pack. He opened it. A bright red blanket. Heat shimmered from it. Warmth. He held it out. Kailri stared. Was it a trick? Or a gift? The child in her arms shivered hard. His lips turned blue. Kailri made a choice. She moved slowly, gently laying her son into the warm blanket the human had placed on the snow. The human wrapped the baby tight. Then, without speaking, he pulled off his own thick coat and placed it over Kailri's shoulders. She flinched from the kindness. Her eyes filled again. He pointed to the trees, toward a light in the distance. A cabin? Kailri nodded weakly. She tried to stand but almost fell. The human stepped in. Strong arms, careful hands. He lifted the child into one arm and helped Kailri with the other. Together they walked, through the storm, through the darkness. Each step felt like the end. But then the light grew closer. Warmth, shelter, hope. Inside the cabin, machines beeped. A heater hummed. The human placed the child on a bed and worked fast, wrapping, checking, feeding fluids. Kailri sat near the wall, shaking, watching. The child breathed. Steady. Kailri covered her mouth. A sob escaped her lips. She had been ready to die, ready to bury her child under the snow. But now, he was alive, and the man who saved him said nothing. He just smiled once, then gave her a cup of warm broth. Kailri looked at him, a human, a stranger, and maybe the last good thing in the universe. A stranger's fire. Kailri sat beside the strange warm bed, her body still trembling. The cabin was quiet now, except for the soft hum of machines and the crackle of firewood burning. Her child, her baby, lay sleeping under a red blanket, his small chest rising slowly, but steady. She stared at the human. He moved around the small room with calm hands. He didn't say much. Maybe he couldn't speak her language. Maybe he didn't want to. But his actions spoke louder than words. He had made fire, not just in the fireplace, but inside Kaylee's frozen chest. She had felt only ice and sorrow for days. But now, something warm stirred there. Small, fragile, but real hope. The man poured warm liquid into a metal cup and handed it to her again. She took it with shaking fingers. It was thick, salty, and strange, but it filled her stomach like nothing had in weeks. Her hands stopped shaking. Kaylee looked around. The cabin was old, but strong. Walls made of dark wood, a metal stove, 2 small beds, shelves with food and tools, a communication screen that blinked with a broken signal. It was a survivor's shelter, far from the nearest outpost, probably abandoned. Until now. The human, Jack, she had heard him say once, sat down across from her. He looked tired, but his eyes were calm. His face had many lines. A scar ran across his jaw, but his hands were gentle. He pointed to himself and said, "Jack." Kaylee blinked, then touched her own chest. "Kaylee." Jack smiled, then pointed to her child and raised an eyebrow. Kaylee hesitated, then whispered, "Tiran." Jack nodded once. "Tiran," he repeated slowly. It sounded different in his voice, but it still made Kaylee's heart ache in a strange, warm way. Outside, the storm still roared. Wind slammed against the windows. Snow covered everything. But in here there was fire, warmth, safety. Kaylee leaned back against the wall, eyes heavy. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't afraid to sleep. But just before her eyes closed, Jack stood up and pulled a small blanket over her knees. She looked up in surprise. He didn't say anything, just smiled again, then went to the window and looked out. Hours passed. Kaylee woke in the middle of the night to a strange sound. She sat up fast. Tiran cried softly in the bed beside her. She rushed to him, gently picking him up. His skin was warmer now. His eyes opened halfway. He looked at her. For a moment, just a second, he smiled. Kaylee's chest squeezed. He was alive. She hugged him tightly, tears sliding down her cheeks. That was when she noticed Jack standing nearby, holding a bowl of thick food. He nodded and handed it to her. Kaylee took a bit on her finger and placed it in Tiran's mouth. The child swallowed. Slowly. Jack's face softened. They didn't need to speak. Not now. Not yet. Kaylee looked down at her son. Her voice broke into a hum, a soft song, the same lullaby she had sung in the snow. Sleep now, little star. The fire is near, no fear, no scar. Jack stood silently watching. The sound of her voice, though quiet, seemed to warm the room more than the fire. After a while, she looked up. "Why?" she asked, pointing to herself, then her son, then to him. "Why help?" Jack was silent for a moment. Then he walked over to a small box, opened it, and pulled out a photo. He held it out. Kaylee took it carefully. The picture showed a human woman with kind eyes, holding a small baby. Jack stood beside her, smiling. All 3 of them looked so happy. Then Kaylee noticed something. The woman wore a pendant, the same one Jack now kept tied around his wrist. Kaylee looked at the picture again. The baby had strange marks on his arms. Medical scars. Sick. Just like Tiran. Kaylee's hands shook slightly. Jack looked away, rubbing his face. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His family was gone. But maybe saving hers made something hurt a little. Kaylee put the photo down slowly, then looked at Jack again. She gave a single nod. Jack nodded too. 2 survivors. 2 strangers. 1 fire. And in the quiet of the night, as Tiran slept again, Kelry whispered 2 words in her alien tongue. Thank you. Jack didn't understand the words, but somehow he understood the meaning. Shelter of the warm-blooded. The storm outside never stopped, but inside the cabin, a different world had started. Kelry sat near the fire, her child safe in her arms. The walls no longer felt like a prison. They felt like protection. This small, wooden shelter hidden deep in the frozen forest had become a home, for now. Jack moved quietly around the room. He was always doing something, fixing a broken heater, checking food supplies, adjusting an old solar panel outside. He didn't rest much, but whenever Tiran made a sound, Jack looked over quickly. He always made sure the child was okay. Kelry had noticed that. She didn't speak much. Her language was full of sharp tones and soft clicks that Jack didn't understand, but little by little they had made a way to talk. Simple gestures, simple looks, simple kindness. One day, Kelry tried to help. She stood and pointed to the corner where boxes of supplies were stacked. Jack watched her, confused. She walked to the tools, picked one up, and mimicked what he had done the day before, tightening loose screws on a panel near the heater. Jack smiled. He handed her another tool. Together they worked. For the first time in weeks, Kelry felt useful. Not just a burden, not just a lost mother. She was doing something, building something, fixing something. That night she sang to Tiran again, but this time, her voice didn't shake. Jack listened from across the room, quietly polishing an old device. She noticed something about him. His face looked calm, but lonely, like someone who had smiled too long just to survive. The next morning, Kelry found an old paper pad and a dull pencil. She sat near the window and began to draw. Her hands moved slowly at first, then faster, when Jack returned from outside, brushing snow from his coat. She handed him the paper. It was a drawing of a mountain and a little shelter under it, with 3 figures drawn close together. One tall, one small, and one holding both. Jack stared at it for a long time, then turned it over and wrote something in basic galactic script. Warm because you're here. He handed it back. Kelry held the paper to her chest. Something had changed between them. Not romance, not yet, but something strong, something real. Trust. That afternoon, the heater flickered. The cabin's warmth dipped. Jack frowned and opened the control panel. Kelry watched, worried. Tiran whimpered from the bed. Jack shook his head. Backup's running low, he said, half to himself. Kelry didn't understand the words, but she knew the look on his face. Danger. She stood beside him. Jack pulled out a power cell. It was cracked, weak. Not enough for many more nights. Jack rubbed the back of his neck, then turned to Kelry and pointed to the forest beyond the window. Old tech, downhill, he said. Danger, but maybe parts. Kelry tilted her head. She looked outside. The snow had softened. The wind was quieter. She turned back to Tiran, sleeping peacefully, then nodded. They had to try. They left the cabin before sunset. Jack carried a small bag of tools. Kelry followed behind, alert, her sharp eyes scanning the trees. Her alien body moved differently, quiet, graceful, like a hunter in the woods. They walked for over an hour, then saw it. Half buried in the snow was the wreckage of an old drone tower. Rusted, twisted, forgotten. It had crashed years ago, maybe, from a storm like this one. Jack dug through the metal looking for anything useful. Kelry kept watch. The forest was silent, but silence was not always safety. Jack finally found it. A working coil and a charged backup cell. It wasn't perfect, but it would keep the heater alive for a few more days. He turned to Kelry and gave a small thumbs up. Just then, snow crunched behind them. Kelry spun fast, claws ready. But it wasn't an animal. It was a machine. A small scout drone. It hovered silently, blinking. It had seen them. Jack's face went pale. "Tracker," he whispered. Kalri grabbed a stone and hurled it. The drone blinked again and flew off. They had been seen. Someone now knew they were here. They ran, back through the forest, fast and silent. Jack fixed the heater quickly, inserting the new cell. Warmth returned. But danger had come with it. Kalri held Tyron close that night, her ears twitching at every sound. Jack sat by the door, rifle in hand, not sleeping, waiting. But as the fire burned, Kalri whispered something in her own tongue. Not a song this time, a promise. "You gave us warmth, human. I will protect it now." Memories of fire and ice. Kalri didn't sleep that night. Even as the fire glowed and her child slept warm, her eyes stayed on the window. The image of the drone haunted her thoughts. Its red light, the soft hum, the way it flew off so fast, like it had a purpose. Someone would come. Maybe not tonight, but soon. And they wouldn't be like Jack. They wouldn't come with blankets and food. They would come with chains. In the quiet hours before dawn, Jack sat across from her, the rifle resting on his lap. His face looked tired but calm, like this wasn't his first time waiting for trouble. Kalri studied him. He was strong, but not like a soldier. He had the look of a man who had been forced to survive too many things. Scars told stories on his hands, a burn mark near his neck, a long, healed wound across his arm. She wondered what he had run from and what he had lost. Kalri slowly pulled out something from under her coat, a small crystal shard shaped like a teardrop. It glowed faintly. She held it out to Jack. He took it carefully. "What is it?" he asked softly. Kalri pointed to herself, then to the crystal, then to the stars. Jack understood. It was from her home, a piece of her world. All she had left. He looked at her. "You miss it?" Kalri didn't answer. She just stared into the fire. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "My planet burned." Jack sat up a little. "War?" She nodded. "They said our kind was too many, too weak, took too much." Her eyes watered. "So they burned the skies, took our waters, left only ice." Jack clenched his jaw. Kalri looked down. "I lost my mate, my clan, my name." She paused. Only Kalri now. Jack didn't speak. He just held the crystal close, then carefully placed it on the shelf near the fire. Safe. Respected. As the day began, Kalri fed Tyron soft fruit paste Jack had found in the storage. The child giggled once, just once, but it was the first time she'd heard him do that since the snow began. It felt like sunlight. Jack smiled too, watching from the corner. Then, he quietly walked outside. Kalri followed a few minutes later. She found him digging something from the frozen ground, a small metal box, old and rusted. He brought it inside and opened it. Photos, notes, a necklace, a ring. Kalri sat beside him, quiet. He handed her a photo, a woman and child, the same ones from before. "This was my family," he said. "My wife, my son." Kalri traced the faces with her clawed fingers. "They got sick. Colony didn't have enough medicine, others left us behind." He laughed bitterly. "I begged for help, no one came." Kalri looked up. Her heart hurt for him. "They died in my arms. I stayed here, alone, because it was better than hearing. People say sorry." Kalri reached for the necklace and touched the metal charm. It was a small flame, symbol of warmth, of life. She nodded slowly. "We, same," she whispered. Jack looked at her, and for the first time he saw it too. Not alien, not strange. Just another soul who had lost everything, and yet, still breathing. That afternoon, Kalri used her claws to carve symbols into the wood, near the fire. It was her clan's prayer mark, a symbol of protection, of home. Jack watched her hands move. "What does it mean?" he asked. She pointed to the symbol, then to the cabin. "Safe." Jack smiled gently. "That's what I want too." But their peace wouldn't last. Not now. Not with that drone out there. Kelry stood suddenly and went to the corner where Jack kept his extra gear. She pulled out a small shock net trap and a beacon jammer. Jack raised an eyebrow. "You know how to use that?" She gave a short nod. "I was not always a mother," she said. Jack chuckled. "Guess I'm not the only one with secrets." That night they placed traps around the cabin, silent wires, pressure plates, nothing deadly, just enough to warn or slow someone down. Kelry checked every window. Jack cleaned the rifle twice. Tyrion slept soundly. The fire burned. But outside, the wind began to howl again. This time, colder than before. Kelry stood at the door, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She whispered something in her tongue, a vow. "You took everything from me once, but now I have something new. If you try to take it again, I will become the storm." The hunter who followed. The next morning something changed in the wind. It wasn't the cold. The cold had always been there. It was something deeper. A stillness. A silence that made even the trees seem afraid. Kelry felt it first. She paused. As she fed Tyrion, her eyes narrowing, her ears twitched, her breath slowed. She looked toward the door. Jack noticed. He followed her gaze, then stepped outside. The snow had stopped falling. Tracks. Fresh ones. Not theirs. Not animals. Boot prints. Heavy. Deep. Moving toward the cabin from the north ridge, Jack knelt and touched the snow. Still soft. No more than an hour old. He looked up. His eyes met Kelry's through the cabin window. Someone was coming. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Kelry wrapped Tyrion in warm layers and placed him gently in the cabin's hidden back closet. It was lined with thick coats, tools, and power packs. It would muffle sound. She gave him a soft kiss on the forehead and closed the door. Jack checked his rifle. Loaded. Kelry took a blade from her belt. It had been hidden in her clothing since the day they met. She had once been a scout, before motherhood had made her something else. But now, the hunter in her woke again. They took positions. Jack by the front window, Kelry by the back. And then, they waited. The wind picked up again, a branch cracked. Snow shifted. Then he appeared, tall, armor painted black and silver, a long rifle on his back, a mask with red eyes. His steps were slow, careful, measured, like a predator in no rush. Kelry's blood went cold. She knew that armor, Tharn, a tracker, a bounty hunter from her world. One of the worst. He didn't work for food or coin. He worked for sport, and the child in this cabin had once escaped him. Jack whispered, "Friend of yours?" Kelry shook her head slowly. "Danger," she said. Jack raised the rifle. Got it, but Tharn didn't attack. He stopped 10 steps from the cabin and raised both hands. Then in a low, grating voice, he spoke in basic, "Kelry, I only want the child." Kelry stood in the doorway now, blade at her side. "You lied before," she said coldly. Tharn laughed. "I never lie. I just hunt." His mask turned toward Jack. "You're the human?" Jack said nothing. Tharn smiled under the mask. "Strange. You don't look like a savior." Jack lifted the rifle higher. "And you don't look like someone who walks away." For a moment, no one moved. Then Tharn lowered his hands. "Fine. I'll take the boy by force." He reached for his weapon. But Kelry was faster. She jumped from the doorway, claws out, blade flashing. Tharn blocked, but her speed surprised him. The two clashed in the snow. Old enemies, now dancing again in a deadly storm of motion. Jack aimed carefully. He waited. Waited. Then took the shot, a flash of blue. Tharn staggered back, arm hit. Kelry moved in for the final strike, but Tharn tossed a grenade to the ground. Smoke burst everywhere. When it cleared, he was gone. Inside the cabin, everything was still. Kelry checked every corner. Jack reset the traps. The boy was safe. But they knew now. This was not over. Not yet. Kelry sat near the fire, her face hard. Jack knelt beside her. Who was he? Hunter, from my world. He sold children like mine. Jack clenched his jaw. I should have ended him. Kelry looked at him. You saved me. Then, after a long pause, she added, You saved him. Jack smiled weakly. I'm getting tired of being lucky. They both chuckled, but the laugh faded quickly, because now they knew Tharn would return, with more than tricks, with fire. Kelry held her child again that night, his small hand wrapped around her claw, and as he slept she whispered not a lullaby but a vow. No more running, no more hiding. This is our fire now, and I will burn before I let them take you. She called him family. The snow had softened, but the air inside the cabin was heavier than ever. Jack sat at the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. Burn marks still covered his gloves from the shot he fired yesterday. His shoulder was bruised where the hunter's grenade had thrown him back. Kelry moved quietly. Her steps made no sound. She checked every window again, replaced 2 traps, double-locked the main door. Tyrion was safe for now, but Tharn had escaped, and he would come again. Maybe not alone this time. Kelry sat beside Jack. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Then Jack broke the silence. I'm not a soldier, he said. Kelry looked at him. He stared into the fire, lost in thought. I never fought before. I never killed. But when I saw that thing point his weapon at your son, I didn't think. I just fired. Kelry placed her clawed hand on his. You are more than a soldier. Jack looked up, surprised. You are family now. The words hung in the air. Family. That word had not been said in this cabin in years. Not since Jack lost his wife and child. Not since he chose to live alone, far from cities and voices and pain. Kelry had seen war, hunger, loss. But she had never seen a human cry. Until now. Jack turned away, but not fast enough. Kelry didn't say anything. She simply moved closer and rested her head lightly on his shoulder. The fire crackled beside them, and the silence felt safe. Later that day, Kelry prepared a small bowl with herbs and warm water. She gently pressed it against Jack's shoulder where the bruises were deep. He winced but didn't stop her. You care too much, he joked. Kelry looked at him with a soft smile. You saved my world, she said. Jack raised an eyebrow. Your world burned, she shook her head. My world is not a place. She placed her hand over Tyrion's chest, where he slept peacefully. My world is him. Then she pointed to Jack's chest. And now, you. Jack swallowed hard. No one had said something like that to him in years. He didn't know what to say back, but his silence said enough. That night, Kelry sat near the fire and pulled something from her bag, a stone necklace, carved by hand. It was old, worn, with a small piece missing. She held it for a moment, then walked to Jack. This was given by my mate. Before he went to fight. She took Jack's hand and placed the necklace in his palm. In my people's way, when we give this, it means something strong. Jack looked down at the stone. He didn't know her rituals, but he knew meaning when he saw it. He closed his fingers around the necklace slowly. I'll protect both of you, he said. I won't let them take you. Kelry gave a small smile. I believe you. The next morning, Jack found Kelry teaching Tyrion how to press buttons on a small music box. The child giggled every time the soft tune played. A child's laugh, bright and warm, filled the cabin. For the first time, Jack leaned against the wall and watched. This didn't feel like survival anymore. It felt like life, real life. But danger still waited in the woods. Jack knew it. Kael'ri knew it too. So that afternoon, they built something together. Warning tower, tall enough to send a signal, a flare if help was ever needed, or a trap if Tharn returned. They worked side by side. No words, just motion, balance, unity. At the top, Jack placed something small, the same stone necklace Kael'ri had given him, not to use as bait, but as a sign. This place was no longer just a shelter. It was a home, and it would be defended like one. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned orange, Kael'ri stood with Tyrion in her arms, watching the wind blow through the trees. Jack stood beside her. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Instead, she looked at him and asked a quiet question. Would you come if I left? Jack frowned. Leave where? If my people come. If they want to take me back. If I go. Would you come too? Jack stared at her, then looked down at Tyrion, who was smiling at him with sleepy eyes. He didn't answer right away. Then, he simply said, yes. Kael'ri exhaled slowly, and for the first time since she had fled the frozen wasteland, she didn't feel alone. She didn't feel unwanted. She felt chosen. She felt home. The snow will sing. No more. The storm had passed. For the first time in many days, the sky was clear. The snow on the ground sparkled under the weak sunlight. Trees no longer groaned in the wind. The forest felt quiet. Too quiet. Kael'ri stood at the edge of the clearing. Her child, Tyrion, slept in her arms. Jack stood behind her, one hand on the door of the cabin, the other holding his rifle. They both felt it. Something was coming. Not snow, not wind, not peace. Jack saw it first. A ship, small, sleek, hovering just above the trees. Its shape was familiar. Alien design, quiet, sharp, silver. Kael'ri's breath caught in her throat. It's my people, she whispered. The ship landed gently and the door opened. 3 figures stepped out. Their skin was like hers, tall, elegant, dressed in deep-colored robes, but their eyes were cold. One of them, an elder female, stepped forward and raised her hand. Kael'ri, she called. We received the signal. We thought you were dead. Kael'ri didn't answer. She clutched Tyrion tighter. Jack stepped beside her. The woman's eyes flicked to him. And who is this human? Kael'ri's voice was clear now. He is the one who saved us. The elder nodded slowly. We came to bring you home. Kael'ri frowned. Home? You left us to freeze. You closed your doors. You watched me beg. The woman didn't flinch. The vote was made. Resources were low. Kael'ri turned her back to them for a moment, looking at the cabin, the trees, the fire still glowing inside. This is my home now. One of the younger aliens stepped forward. His voice was firmer. The child is important. He is of rare blood. He belongs to the council. Kael'ri's eyes turned sharp. He belongs to me. The young alien stared at her, then looked to Jack. And the human, he is nothing. Why is he here? Kael'ri raised her chin. He is my family. The wind stirred again. Jack didn't move, but he tightened his grip on the rifle. The aliens looked at each other. Then the elder said softly, There is a place for you, Kael'ri, but not for him. Kael'ri didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at Jack. His eyes were calm. He didn't plead. He didn't ask her to stay. He was ready to let her go, if that was her choice. And that broke her, because no one had ever loved her like that. Quiet, patient, brave, without asking for anything in return. She turned back to the aliens. My place is with them, she said, motioning to Jack and Tyrion. The young alien stepped forward, again. You would give up safety? Status? Return to living in this wooden box? Kaelri stepped forward too. No, she said sharply. I'm not giving up anything. I already have everything. Suddenly a sharp beep came from the forest. Jack turned quickly. From the trees. A blast. A shadow. Tharn. He had returned. Not alone. Drones flew behind him. Four-legged metal beasts moved fast over the snow. The aliens turned, alarmed. Jack grabbed Kaelri and pulled her down behind a log. Go, he yelled. Take Tyran and run. But Kaelri didn't run. She stood, blade ready. The elder alien shouted something in her language and raised a shield wall. The other aliens joined her, fighting off the drones. Jack fired. One drone exploded. Tharn appeared, laughing, his weapon glowing. I warned you, he shouted. The child is mine, Kaelri growled. Not this time. She moved like a shadow, fast, sharp. Her blade sliced through one drone, then two. Tharn fired, but missed. Jack flanked from the side, his shots clean, precise. The battle was fast, but brutal. One of the aliens fell. Two drones exploded in the snow. Kaelri reached Tharn. He turned. Too slow. She drove her blade into his chest. He froze, eyes wide, then fell. The forest went still again. Only the sound of Tyran crying broke the silence. Later, after the smoke cleared, the elder alien approached Kaelri again. You fought for him, she said. Kaelri nodded. Always. The woman hesitated, then said softly, If you choose to stay, the council will not stop you. You are no longer a lost name. Kaelri looked at Jack. She didn't need to answer. The elder understood. Without another word, the aliens returned to their ship and flew away. That night, the fire burned bright. Tyran slept between Kaelri and Jack. Curled like a warm seed of hope, Kaelri reached for the necklace Jack wore, the one she had given him, and smiled. You are not just a man now, she said. Jack tilted his head. Then what am I? Kaelri leaned her head against his shoulder. You are my mate, my warmth, my second life. Outside, the snow still lay across the forest, but the silence had changed. No longer cold, no longer empty. It was the silence of peace, of family, and the snow would sing no more.